Hello, my beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. If we're meeting for the first time, I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I do this through one-on-one angel sessions, soul mentoring, and a variety of classes designed to inspire your spirit. And you can learn more at my website, illuminatingsouls.com, where you can also sign up for my daily inspiration email blast. And if you sign up for that, you'll also be in the know about all of my offerings. About every 6 weeks or so, I offer a new class. My classes tend to be intimate in size, anywhere between 4 and 10 people, and we meet over Zoom. So we really get to know each other, and you have an opportunity for direct support and mentoring. And it would be a blessing to have you join one of my classes whenever you feel guided to do so. So there's lots of ways that we can connect, and I look forward to hearing from you. If you are enjoying the podcast, please feel free to drop me a line. I love hearing about your experiences with the podcast. So feel free to reach out, and it will be a blessing to connect with you. But for now, the angels and I are here to help you come into a beautiful place of soothing, calming, loving energy. So this podcast is born out of 2 of my favorite forms of self-care, the angels and listening to sleep podcasts. If you are a regular listener, you know that I listen to a sleep podcast every night, and it's part of my bedtime ritual. I'm somebody who goes to bed super early. I'm usually in bed by 8 o'clock. And I love burrowing into the covers, the blankets, and the pillows. And I put in my earbuds and I pick a podcast episode. I will say that I often listen to this podcast and it helps me fall asleep, so it feels like a double blessing that I have created a podcast not only for you, but it's one that works for me as well. And what I recommend is that you turn the volume down lower than you would if you were listening to an audiobook, because I find it helpful to have to reach just a little bit for the podcast's audio. And usually for me, within 20 minutes, I'm out. I also use a sleep timer so that it doesn't play all night, although some people do prefer to have it playing all night. I find that when I do that, it interferes with my dream cycle. I usually wind up having dreams where I'm trying to turn the audio off. So I use a sleep timer, and almost all of the podcast apps have one. And I set it to stop playing as soon as the episode is over. So we'll be together for about an hour. That's always my preference for sleep podcasts. And just so you know, you don't have to pay attention the whole time. This is not the type of podcast where you have to stay riveted for the whole hour. I'm really here to keep you company and bring forward loving, sweet energy for you. And I do know some of you listen during your waking hours. So if you're going about your day or evening, it is a blessing to keep you company as well. So as I record this, it is early morning. I think it's going to be a beautiful day here, which I am looking forward to. I do have quite a few things on my list today, but they're all lovely things that I enjoy. So I'm looking forward to this beautiful day. I did want to share with you a little bit about being energetically sensitive. So I don't know if you've ever tuned into the theme of solar flares. It's only something that I became aware of maybe in the past 15 years or so. But I've come to discover that I tend to be very sensitive to solar flares. And what that means, I'm not going to speak about this with any kind of authority, but what it means is there's increased solar activity. And it's interesting because I will feel the symptoms of the solar flare long before I know that it is happening. And this happened to me yesterday. I did my grocery shopping. And then I had to bring all the groceries into the house, and we have about 6 steps up to the house. It wasn't a big job, but maybe I had 8 bags of groceries, so it was a few trips up and down the stairs, and then I had to bring the garbage cans in from the curb. All of these activities I do every week without an issue. But yesterday, I was out of breath. And I was like, what is happening? When I was much heavier, I would often get out of breath, and that's what it reminded me of. And I wasn't really concerned. It didn't feel as if I was having some sort of health issue. It was just more anecdotal information that something was different. And sure enough, I got onto Facebook, and there's a few people I follow who talk about the energy, and all of them were posting about these geomagnetic storms and solar flares we're having. And one of them starts with the headline, "You may experience shortness of breath." And I was like, oh, that's what was going on. And it's interesting, that tends to be a symptom that I have when there's increased solar activity. So listen, this goes without saying, right? But I'm going to say it. This is not me diagnosing you that any problems you might have with breathing are because of solar flares, okay? Let's just be really clear about that. I'm rather sharing with you my anecdotal reflection of how increased solar flares and geomagnetic storms tend to impact me. I will also feel more tired. It's also not unusual that I have increased emotional waves that I navigate. I might feel more sad or agitated. And I find it fascinating that I can be so influenced by these things. And it makes sense. We are electric beings, right? There's all kinds of electric currents that move through our physiology. We're electrons and protons and neutrons and all of those tons of things. So anyways, that's just my little reflection that we are very sensitive to the energies around us. At least I am. And so to just be aware of your instrument. And on the days when you might need a little more rest, rest. If you feel more emotionally sensitive, give yourself some quiet space. that when these things happen, we don't always know what's influencing it. I sometimes call it energetic PMS. I had a very difficult time in adolescence with my hormonal cycles, and life would get really hard for about 10 days emotionally. And I always knew that by day 11 or 12, I would feel better. And these waves often feel like that to me. I just have to move through them. And so, if you're listening, you likely are also energetically sensitive. So pay attention to the cycles of the moon. Pay attention to how you experience the day. Are you having an easy day? Is everything agitating you? You know, there's days that I feel like I am done with humanity and I have to get home. And there's other days I am so happy to be out in the world. So we're different every day because the world is different every day. So to make space for what you are feeling, to make space to take good care of your instrument. A lot of you listening are sensitive beings, and this is not a weakness. To me, it's a superpower because it enables us to feel the depths of love and to be on this earth with great empathy and caring for others. And that is an extraordinary gift that you bring into this world. And one of my intentions for this podcast is to bring the angelic energy in for you to help replenish your battery so that you can feel this beautiful, vibrant, calming, loving energy that is very supportive of well-being. So I'm going to call the angels in now to be with us. So I invite you to take a deep breath in as we call ourselves gently into the heart of God. And beautiful angels on high, I invite you to join us here. I ask that you infuse this broadcast with waves of love, of comfort, of peace, and of calm in service to each of our beloveds hearing this message. And angels, I ask that you balance our energy fields, helping to calibrate us for a deep sense of well-being and goodness. And dear ones, just take a nice deep breath in and out, allowing yourself to be received in love by your angels. They are here right now, and with your permission, they are filling the space you are in with a soft pink light. And as they do this, you may hear it in the distance, but birds are singing as they greet this moment. And the love and the sweetness is filling your space, creating a comforting, beautiful sanctuary where you can replenish and receive and connect with your own beautiful divine essence. You are truly a blessing here on earth, You are one of the ways that God's love is made visible in this world. So take a nice deep breath in and allow this love to flow to every cell of your body, every thought in your mind, and every emotion in your heart. And as you breathe, allow yourself to be filled with this beautiful divine presence. This divine presence is you and so much more. You are calling in the greater expanse of all that you are, the beautiful, divine, wise one that is you. And I affirm that you are opening to your magic, to your goodness, to your wisdom, and to your light. And just breathe. The angels want you to know that they are placing signs of magic upon your path. So in the days to come, to just pay attention for your signs of magic. They might be repetitive numbers. They might be a message on a license plate in the car in front of you. It might be a song that is playing in your head when you wake up in the morning. I find that that's a really joyful way the angels will sometimes speak to us. So if you have a random song playing in your head in the morning, follow the lyrics and see if there's a message there for you. I'll share with you one of my favorite stories about this. Many years ago, I was having a particularly tumultuous time, and I don't know that it was really tumultuous, but I was experiencing it as such. Everything felt magnified. And I woke up one morning to the song Row, Row, Row Your Boat, right? We all know this from childhood. And I was thinking, what on earth is happening? Why is Row, Row, Row Your Boat going on in my head? And I felt the angels come in. And they said, go ahead, sing the song, follow the song. And so, in my head, I'm not going to sing it. But the words came forward. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream. And I was stunned by the beauty of that message. And I said, oh, angels, angels, you are so good. I had no idea. And that was the message that I needed to hear in that moment. Row your boat gently down the stream, merrily. Life is but a dream. And that moment brought me so much delight, and it made it so much easier for me to shift my consciousness so that I could be present to the blessings around me. That was one of my experiences of a sign of magic brought to you by the angels. And now I get to share that with you as we row our boats gently down the stream merrily. Isn't that a lovely word? Such a great adjective. I'm merrily going to the store. I am merrily going to do a load of laundry. It's like you can put it in front of anything and it sounds much more delightful than it did before. So here's to merrily having the sweetest of dreams, merrily going about your day, feeling the love of your angels shining upon you, guiding you, loving you, supporting you. There is so much love and goodness here for you, truly. And I am so deeply grateful for this opportunity to shine this love upon you right now. And so I invite you to get cozy and snuggle on in. And if you are hoping to fall asleep, you drift off when you are ready. And I'm going to read to you and ramble through the pages of an old magazine with you. So for this episode, I thought we could return to the pages of Sunset Magazine for July of 1898. So you might know the present day Sunset Magazine, especially if you live on the west coast of the United States. It's a wonderful gardening travel magazine. It's beautiful. They always have gorgeous pictures and gorgeous gardens. But the magazine was originally founded back in the late 1800s to help promote the Southern Pacific Railroad. Back then, there weren't any airplanes. If you wanted to get somewhere, trains were the mode of transportation, or horse and wagon. But for most people, it was a train if you wanted to get from here to there, and it was a travel. Trains helped get us where we needed to go. So we're going to dive right in to the July 1898 Sunset publication. So in this part of the publication, we have notes from the resorts, and they share little snippets about what's happening at different resorts on the West Coast. So think of this a little bit like a travel dream. We're gonna read about all the different places we could go and what the different resorts are offering. So we start with Yosemite. The large travel to Yosemite still continues, and apparently the people of California are beginning to realize the possibilities of the Sierras for delightful summer outings. And it is glorious there in the summer. The excellent hotel accommodations, both in the valley and en route, at Wawona and Oahe, I'm sorry if I don't say these names right. I think it's Oahe, are of themselves incentives to travel. Among last month's visitors to the valley were Mrs. J. O. Gunn and family, Mrs. C. A. Spreckles and party, Mr. Reuben Lloyd and Senator Frank Moffett and wife of Oakland. I have no idea who these people are, but perhaps if we frequented the society pages in 1898, we would know these names. Commissioners Foote, Mitson, and Givens, and Secretary Learman and wife also made a trip to Yosemite in June. I don't know why I always laugh when it's like, and wife. She has a name. I'm sure she's a very accomplished person. But that's my stuff. So they share about some more people. An excursion party comprising most of the prominent educators of Southern California will leave Los Angeles for the Valley on July 5th They will go via Inspiration Point and return over the Meadow Road from Glacier Point. They then move on to Lake Tahoe, where they say a tri-weekly sleeping car for the accommodation of Lake Tahoe travel has been placed on the evening train from San Francisco, leaving that city on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. The Bay people will be well represented at McKinney's this summer, and as low rates are announced from Central and Southern California, a big travel is expected from those sections during August and September. The guests at McKinney's arranged a Red Cross benefit on the evening of June 20th, which netted a most enjoyable evening for all participants and nearly $20 for the benevolent purposes of the Red Cross. They're then talking about Castle Crag and Sacramento Canyon camping grounds. I'm not sure where that is. The Tavern of Castle Crag has been brightened by many new faces the last 2 weeks, and the adjacent points of recreation and sport have each received their quota. The new incline railway at Shasta Springs adds much to the convenience of cottagers at that beautiful spot. They then go on to reference Pacific Grove. The month of June has brought many visitors to Pacific Grove who are enjoying the perfect weather and the varied attractions of this most charming resort. Fishing for salmon, which is now running in great numbers in the bay, is one of the principal amusements. There are as many as 75 boats out each day, and it is a picturesque and animated scene, the fleet moving together from point to point, the white sails gleaming against the blue waters of the bay. Bathing is also an attractive feature, and every day the raft is reached by the more venturesome swimmers, while the timid ones are content to frolic in the shallower water near the shore. Swimming lessons are given daily by a competent teacher. I love that they had to put in there they're competent versus someone who's not a good teacher. It's like life hint. If you're going to learn swimming in the ocean, make sure you have a competent teacher. That would be very important. They then go on to talk about what's happening in Long Beach. Long Beach is enjoying the largest and liveliest assemblage of visitors ever known here so early in the season. The bathing is as delightful as ever, and facilities afforded by our substantial wharf has brought a fleet of 12 fine yachts, and more are expected soon. Mr. C.P. Barrows, a prominent fruit man of San Bernardino, is here for the summer. A large skating rink and dance hall is one of this season's additions to the amusement facilities at Long Beach. Mr. D.W. McLeod, president of the Fruit Growers Association of Riverside, with his wife and 2 daughters, will occupy a cottage on Ocean Avenue, and Mr. W.V. Newland has taken the Stadacona cottage for the season. Stadacona, I think is what it's called. So I find it so interesting that back in the day they would announce who was going where. Now we do that ourselves on social media, but I don't know. I guess this is their version of Facebook. Right? Mr. and Mrs. Wesley Maffei will be so-and-so, wherever we would never announce that these days, personally. I wouldn't. But it's interesting. Okay, we're now going on to Santa Cruz. Hotels at Santa Cruz report a brisk, early summer business, and evidently resorters are making an early start for their vacations. Then they talk about Paso Robles. Hotel El Paso de Robles is already showing the result of the new and improved management. The grounds about the big caravansary, That's what it says. Caravansaray are in charge of a competent, again that word competent, landscape gardener. I don't know why that makes me laugh, versus an incompetent one. And their beauty is a surprise to all travelers. The hotel and bathhouse have been repainted and many other minor improvements made. The fact that the culinary department is under the direct supervision of Mr. Otto E. Never has already influenced a number of San Francisco clubmen to spend their vacations at Paso Robles Springs. A musicale is given each evening. It might be musical, but it just has an E on the end. A musical, perhaps, or musicale, is given each evening on the spacious veranda of the hotel by the famous Führer Quintet. Among the last month's visitors were Judge George H. Buck of Redwood City, Mrs. B. A. Peckham, and Mrs. Norton of San Mateo. One of the favorite rides is to the Santa Isabel, with its charming little lake, beautifully situated in the hills about 2.5 miles from Paso Robles. All right, and now we talk about Santa Monica, a place I know well, and it was a resort town back at the late 1800s versus the incredibly densely populated place that it is now. Santa Monica never had such an inundation of visitors as she is now experiencing. And I just want to say, why don't you wait 120 years and then you will see an inundation of visitors? But this is 1898. So in the context of that time, Santa Monica never had such an inundation of visitors as she is now experiencing, owing to the capable and popular, again with the capable, and competent. I'm sorry. It's early in the morning here, and I guess I'm a little punchy. Okay, owing to the capable and popular management of the Hotel Arcadia, which was a very popular resort at the time. Manager Miller is making, in fact, as well as theory, and has succeeded in making the Arcadia one of the most attractive seaside homes on the southern coast, ranking with Coronado or Del Monte. In going over and around the house, it is interesting to note the originality with which so many of the improvements have been undertaken. Little things oftentimes attract one's attention even more than the large things. For instance, it is a little thing to see the elegant silver candelabra and tasteful silk shades, and yet the air of refinement and elegance and the touch of home atmosphere that they give to the room is especially noticeable. In all the sleeping and living rooms throughout the house, pictures have been placed that are distinctly Western. In one room will be found a spirited sketch by Frederick Remington, and another a fine photograph of one of the old missions, or an exquisite watercolor of the California poppy. The pictures are not large, yet they give a California atmosphere to the room, even when the blinds are down, and all the glorious surroundings of sea, mountain, and flower-clad valley are out of sight. Another one of the great improvements of the Arcadia Hotel is the new breakfast room. In reality, it is a large ocean parlor open to the sea in 3 directions, so that no matter where the guest may sit, he has the glorious outlook over the pearly-faced ocean. In addition to this, as Hotel Arcadia is located midway between Point Dumas on the between Point Dumas on the north, forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, you'd think I would know that since I lived in LA for so long, and Point Fermin on the south. Not only is the ocean visible, but also the wide sweep of these outstretching arms in either direction. This beautiful effect is further enhanced by the glory of the Sierra Santa Monica on the north and the Palos Verdes hills on the south. Within everything is as dainty and charming as it can be. To enjoy one's breakfast in this delightful outlook is an experience as unique as it is delightful. Then the fish grill room, everything here suggests the sea. The walls are covered with green rag silk paper, suggestive of the depths of the old ocean. All around the room and on all the pillars, fish nets are artistically festooned and hung. I just have to say, we don't use the word festooned often enough. That's such a great word. Here and there, sailors' knots artistically made of the whitened rope are to be seen. Trout lines and baskets, fishermen's storm hats, anchors and anchor chains, oars, rowlocks, etc. In whichever way the eye looks, it is met by some reminder of the sea. Hereafter, Santa Monica will be an all-year-round instead of season resort, with Los Angeles only 18 miles distant and the frequent and rapid electric and steam transportation now afforded. It should be most popular with the winter tourist travel. And now we move on to Avalon and Catalina Island. With the favorite steamer, Hermosa, back from Alaska and placed on her regular run to the island. For those of you who are not from California, Catalina is an island many miles off the coast of Los Angeles. So you have to take a boat to get there. So, with the favorite steamer, Hermosa, back from Alaska and placed on her regular run to the island, Avalon may be said to be in the full tide of her summer glory. One of the other things that's interesting about Avalon is they have wild buffalo or bison. At some point, somebody imported a herd and they have repopulated, so they now dwell there. And cars aren't allowed there, but there's golf carts, I believe. I've actually never been there, believe it or not. All my years living in Los Angeles, I never lived there. But these are just little tidbits I thought I would share with you because perhaps the buffalo were not there yet. Also, William Wrigley, sorry, I keep remembering all these things about Catalina. William Wrigley of the Wrigley gum fame famously built a mansion there. So in addition to the regular island residents from Southern California, there are many Arizona and New Mexico people here this season and a number of northern people. And then they go to name everybody who none of us are going to know. And then there is just a little snippet about some of the literature that is being created by Southern Pacific. So if you want to hear more, the Southern Pacific Company has prepared a variety of summer literature, setting forth in succinct and attractive manner the features of California's seaside and mountain resorts. Most of this literature is in the form of handsomely illustrated folders containing exact and reliable information concerning the pleasure opportunities, hotels, cost of living, railway fares, etc. In many of them, maps are shown. So, if you wanted to do more travel, you could learn more through this beautiful literature they have created. Here's a really interesting article. It's titled A Remarkable Educator, and they're talking about the invention of moving pictures. So again, this is 1898. And the article goes on to say, one of the most valuable inventions of recent years is the Edison projecting kinetoscope. Most of our readers are familiar with the wonderfully realistic moving pictures it produces, but for those who are not, The pictures may be briefly described as animated magic lantern scenes. Isn't that fascinating? How would you describe moving pictures to someone who had never seen it before? I find that so interesting. When the device was perfected, the leading educators of several nations were quick to seize upon it as a means second only to actual travel for informing the youthful mind concerning the customs and scenes in foreign lands the world over. The remarkable quality of showing at their natural size fire engines, running men and animals, trains, waterfalls, steamships, and street scenes, with all their complex action, produces a much more vivid and correct impression on the mind than it is possible to do so by any other means except actually viewing the scenes. The thought occurs, if the kinetoscope can be made so useful an educator for the young, why not for older people? Pictures speak all languages, but here is a picture which conveys not alone the form, but translates to all understandings, regardless of what their articulate language may be, the delicate gradations of meaning expressed by gesture and movement, which are sometimes so elusive when attempt is made to crystallize them into words. It's such an interesting perspective, isn't it? Like, this is that moment when moving pictures is coming on the scene and people are contemplating it, and how will they use it, and what kind of difference will it make in the lives of others. And I just reflect that right now we're going through this regarding the conversation we're having about AI, and what is that going to mean for us. And certainly in my lifetime, I've lived through many of these evolutions with the internet and computers and cellular phones. And so how could I leave out Netflix? Right? That we can just watch something whenever we want to. Okay, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but that's what this is about. It's a sleep podcast, right? We're rambling through this conversation. Okay, I'm going to keep going though. The Southern Pacific Company, realizing the possibilities of the kinetoscope for making known to the world the resources and attractions of the states through which their lines passed, have recently procured, at considerable expense, the reproduction of a number of the most typical and representative views both of scenic and industrial features. The importance of this enterprise will be understood when it is known that it is not by arrangement for display of these scenes in a limited number of places, but that they are listed in all the catalogs of the Edison Company's films, and today have made their way to nearly every civilized country of the globe, for the scenes have intrinsic merit and are not devoted to laudation of the railway's facilities. Many persons suppose that railway advertising is devoted chiefly to the publication of time card folders and matter calculated to impress the public with the fact that this or that railway is the only line, etc. I'm having a hard time reading this. Can you tell it's written in a way that does not lend itself to reading it out loud? But I'm going to keep going. With the Southern Pacific, much the larger share of its advertising expenditure is in making known the advantages and opportunities of the Western Empire for sightseeing and business. There are machines for exhibiting kinetoscope pictures in every civilized country of the globe, and the pictures of the Pacific Coast scenery, products, and methods of culture and of manufacture with the Southern Pacific Company has caused to be taken are available to all alike, and California's greatness may thus be known to the ends of the earth, Not alone through the tax collector does the railway contribute to the common good. Okay, nice way of patting themselves on their back for their contribution to humanity. But I find that a very interesting conversation about how having these movies that we call them movies now, films, programs, help to expand the awareness of different parts of the world. All right, we've now made our way into the August issue from, again, 1898, and there's an interesting article about New Orleans. I know nothing about New Orleans in 1898, so we will learn together. Whatever may be said of the various and unique features of the many gateways of the great railroad systems of this country, it is beyond peradventure that New Orleans, the eastern gateway of the Southern Pacific Company, is entitled to a very considerable distinction in many respects, and in points of quaint and attractive features, the Crescent City, as the great southern metropolis is frequently termed, is far and way ahead of many more important centers. New Orleans has furnished fodder for innumerable skits, brochures, and even volumes published at various times by various writers, notably Cable, King, Gayarre, and Fortier, and in the elaboration of its distinctly quaint phrases, the community has been exploited in a most pleasant manner. And yet, in spite of the much which has been done, and the still more which has been attempted, the romantic episodes of early history and occupation still represent practically an unknown quantity, the store of tradition being much like a mine prospected yet not worked below the outcroppings of the rich vein. This was not written to be read out loud. If you only knew how many times I had to read that sentence before you hear it on the episode. There were a bunch of false starts there. Okay. Classed in the lexicon of the railway man, New Orleans, as a gateway or terminal, has long been recognized as one of the best in the South, or in the entire country for that matter. Rich in legend, matter teeming with wealth of quasi-material sort, stocked to overflowing with all that goes to make up a city of romance and mystic lore, this great eastern gateway of the equally great Southern Pacific system contains in its entirety every element of progressiveness and enterprise. Today tradition is as rampant as ever. Romance is yet a lodestone of great drawing power, but commercial activity and the elaboration of capital is making New Orleans a center of attraction in the business world, and its features from this standpoint are of paramount importance, transcending tradition and generally recognized by the circles which make the mare go. Okay, is it just me, or has he not really said anything yet? I'm sorry, I should not critique somebody who wrote this 120 years ago, but I thought this was going to be more interesting. Maybe we would hear about chicory coffee and beignets, things like that. I may give up this article. It seems like he's very wordy. Well, for instance, let me read to you this sentence. Aside from the glamour which doth, D-O-T-H, yes, uses that word, aside from the glamour which doth hedge about the quaint thoroughfares, odd architecture, romantic institution, customs, and byways made more than ordinarily entertaining and even instructive by the softening influence of time, the New Orleans of today represents much that is of value to the man who seeks realism as exemplified in a commercial way who views the world from the cynical standpoint of prosaic business and counts those hours best which witness the rise of values and the gradual accumulation of wealth. Okay, I think this is all one sentence. So this is some really dense writing. I'm going to keep going though, because it is a sleep podcast and perhaps you are amused or bored, either of which will serve you well right now. Maybe we will get to something though that's a bit more descriptive in a way that will be meaningful to us in the modern day. God bless this person for writing. I mean, there's a lot of vocabulary in here. An elaboration of the various features of the eastern terminal of the Southern Pacific must necessarily contain the various elements which go to make up the entirety. For this reason, it may be well to first dwell upon the earlier phases of the enterprising city and skim aside the flotsam that is on the historical side first, attracts the attention of, I have no idea if I read that properly, but we'll keep going, the attention of the reader. To this end, a reference must be made to the days when the intrepid souls from old France sought fame and fortune in the New World. To Louisiana and its chief settlement, New Orleans, came in the 17th century scores of brave spirits eager to send their names gallantly along the avenues of glory. All right, I'm going to skip this part because it's talking about really sad things that happened. But maybe I can come to something that'll be more interesting. Hold on, we're not done yet. So New Orleans of today is yet connected with the city of a century since. Its aged institutions make this apparent. The battered stuccoed front of the old Spanish Cabalitos. I'm really sorry if I'm saying these names wrong. I'm terrible at pronouncing things like this, so forgive me. I'm going to skip around here a little bit because I'm having some trouble following this. The palace of the Archbishop, a palace once, still a place of residence of the churchmen, but austere and wonderfully circumscribed in its decorations. The convent of the Ursuline nuns, here again age knocks up against the present, back from the river, from below the eager city, where quietly rests the convent and its quaintly garbed sisters and demure Quaker-like pupils. Okay, and you know what? I'm going to have to give up on this article because I am having such a hard time reading it because I can't pronounce half the names and then the sentences keep running together. So I'm so sorry to get you excited about New Orleans history, only to not deliver in the end. But I will read to you the last paragraph of this article, which in small letters underneath says "to be continued." Romantic history is, however, a thing upon which the fancy builds when time is easy. Material progression represents the elements of success, and in this respect New Orleans presents a brightly hued picture in which the tints are laid on lavishly and the general effect most satisfactory to the persons who see in the elaboration of the city's advantages their own upbringing. And we'll just pretend that I read the whole article to you, but you were snoozing so you missed it, okay? So let's just pretend I did an amazing job of reading that to you. And to make it up to you, I'm going to read to you an article called A Natural Conservatory. And it looks like it's about Palm Springs, which is down in Southern California. And it looks like I will be able to read this one successfully to you. At the edge of the Colorado Desert, on the east slope of the San Jacinto Mountains, there is a pretty little valley where the climatic conditions are such that it may well be termed a natural conservatory. In proof of its right to be thus designated, it produces in commercial quantities figs, seedless grapes, melons, berries, peaches, and other deciduous fruits, as well as various farm products from 4 to 6 weeks earlier than any other locality in the Southwest that we are accustomed to consider semi-tropical. This is possible not by reason of higher temperature or greater rainfall, but simply because the valley is, in truth, a natural conservatory. Its light, rich soil corresponds in scientific combination to the best artificially created conditions, and through it percolate the purest of waters from the mountains, so that the fruits of Palm Valley are stimulated to an earlier maturity than is known elsewhere. Palm Valley, or Palm Springs as it is more generally termed, from the name of its nearest railway station, is sheltered on 3 sides by the granite spurs of the San Jacinto Range, and opens to the dry, warm sunshine of the desert as a hothouse opens to the southern run under the hill. The valley obtains its name from a grove of date palms of such great age that neither history nor legend tell aught of those who planted them. The average annual rainfall in the valley is about 3 inches, and the mean temperatures for January 50 degrees, July is 85 degrees. The products of the valley, while perhaps of no greater excellence than those grown in other portions of California, reach the markets first and always command a good price. The luscious figs ripen early in June, as do also certain varieties of grapes, and reach the consumer the 1st of July. Palm Valley is also of note as a health resort, as the climate so favorable to the most sensitive fruits is likewise favorable to the sick. The dry, aseptic air of the desert with ozone and balsamic odors of the mountain, combined with porous soil and an elevation of about 600 feet, induce corrective conditions which cannot fail to profit the invalid. A sanitarium is maintained at the hot springs in the valley. The railway station of Palm Springs is 105 miles east of Los Angeles on the line of the Southern Pacific Sunset Route, and Palm Valley is distant 5 miles from the station. Palm Springs, in addition to being the gateway for the delicious products of Palm Valley, is the distributing center and point of departure of stages for a large section of mining country to the northeast, including the Virginia Dale District. And Palm Springs would go on to be an incredibly popular area, which I have traveled to several times. And all I remember about it is it's super hot in the summer. It is a dry heat, a desert heat. Let's see, what else can I share with you? And I'll give you one more snippet before we complete this episode. I think I just said that about what I read about Palm Springs, but let's do one more. This is notes from Riverside, again in Southern California. The new passenger station of the Southern Pacific at Riverside, California is completed with the exception of the interior finish. Asphalt walks on a concrete foundation are being laid around the entire building, as well as along Market Street between 7th and 8th Streets, making very noticeable improvement. The building will be ready for occupancy in early August. An entire block of ground between 5th and 6th Streets, fronting on Market Street, has been purchased by the Southern Pacific, on which to locate side tracks, turntables, and engine sheds. A new plunge bath has recently been opened up here for the water, which is supplied from a warm sulfur artesian well. Over 4,000 cars of oranges have been shipped this season from the territory covered by the city limits of Riverside, and there are about 200 cars yet to move. A 60-foot flagpole has been added to the new station building, from which floats a large-sized flag, the expression of patriotism on the part of the station employees here. The local train heretofore running between Los Angeles and Chino will, as a result of the completion of the Chino Loop, soon be extended to Riverside, with connections for Redlands and San Bernardino. This will give an earlier train for the metropolis and the coast resorts, and a later train returning than is now enjoyed, and will be much appreciated by the people of Riverside and San Bernardino County. And that will bring us to the completion of my attempting to read to you from this publication in 1898, which was now written to be read aloud in 2023. Ooh, I feel like I kind of did a verbal workout. That was a lot. It's so much easier when I just tell you stories from my life, because these episodes require a lot of editing. I have probably recorded 20 minutes of attempts here that you will not hear. There's a lot of laughter, but it will not be appropriate to let you hear all of that, because all of my stumbling and grumbling as I try to make the words flow together will probably not make for a great sleep episode. But just know it's in there. And so, my beautiful friends, perhaps you've already drifted off and are dreaming of a beautiful resort, dream vacation somewhere in Santa Monica, or in Palm Springs, or New Orleans, even though I didn't read that particular article very well. These places are still quite beautiful. So I wish you the sweetest of dreams. And I'm grateful for this time with you, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon. So thank you. I love you.